Number 9. Worst birthday ever. At the young age of just 20 years old, Wesley Street was convicted for assaulting, violating, and killing one of his best friends from childhood, Keely Bunker. What should have been a fun night out ended in tragedy. Wesley met up with birthday girl Keely and some other friends to drink and party and celebrate another year around the sun. On September 19th, the group took a taxi back to one of the friends' houses. Wesley was then given the duty of walking Keely safely back to her house. But Keely never got back to her home. Sometime during the walk, Wesley pulled her into a dark city park, sexually assaulted her, and then murdered her. He then left her body there and went home and went to bed. Safe to say, Keely Bunker did not have a good birthday. According to what was revealed during the court proceedings, Keely had been choked to death. It's believed that Wesley put her in a chokehold for several minutes, long enough that she was probably already dead long before he ever released her throat. He's now been sentenced to a minimum of 29 years in jail. But here's where this story might upset you even more. Wesley Street had already been busted 3 times for sexual assault and illegal activity with a child, but he was never punished. This meant nobody knew about his grim past, so he was able to have all these friends who trusted him and didn't know he was a sick predator. The fact that nothing was being done about this guy sooner directly resulted in Keely Bunker being strangled to death in a park on her birthday. Number 8. Heated argument. Joseph Ferlazzo and his wife Emily Ferlazzo got into a pretty heated argument. Joseph, 41 years old, 20 years older than his wife, couldn't control his anger, and instead of settling the argument in a civil manner, he shot her to death, chopped her into pieces, and dumped her body parts in various trash bags. At the time of the dispute, Emily and Joseph were traveling to Vermont. They were last seen staying at an Airbnb in Bolton, but Emily was never seen again, and her family soon reported to the police that she was missing. The whole reason that they had been going to Vermont in the first place was to go camping and celebrate their 1-year anniversary. When questioned by the police, Joseph said that his wife vanished after they got in a fight in their camper on a Saturday afternoon. But after more interrogation, he finally broke down and admitted that he murdered her in the camper. Police also found Emily's blood inside the camper. After getting a search warrant, they found 8 plastic garbage bags, with one of them containing Emily's leg. No one knows for sure what the couple argued about that day, but according to police, there was a history of domestic abuse. Joseph was already an unstable and violent individual. This time, he took his violence too far. Number 7. Sister Strangler. In 2019, a kid from Georgia, 18-year-old Kevin Watkins, was sentenced to spend life in prison without the possibility of parole. Why? He was found guilty of strangling his older sister, Alexis Brianna Watkins, to death in their home on February 2, 2018. And the reason why he did it is going to blow your mind. Apparently, the two had been arguing over the Wi-Fi password. According to information brought to light after Kevin was arrested, he had been arguing with his mom over the internet service that they had in their home. I guess the internet just wasn't working fast enough for Kevin. Because the internet was so slow, Kevin changed the Wi-Fi password so that he could play his video games without having any of his family, specifically his sister, slowing the connection down. Alexis tried to simmer down the fight with Kevin and their mother because she was worried that things were about to get physical. Sadly for her, they did. Kevin got his sister in a chokehold and squeezed her neck for an estimated 15 minutes. By the time the police arrived, she was already dead. Deputies tried to perform CPR, but it was just too late. Well, Kevin, you definitely won't be playing any video games in prison. Number 6. BFFs. On July 6th, 2012, Skylar Neese left her home in West Virginia, never to return. Skylar snuck out to meet up with some friends, Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy, all 3 being just 16 years old. But Skylar never came back home after hanging out. When her parents woke up in the morning, they had no idea where she was, so her mother reached out to her 2 best friends. Sheila said the 3 of them had been driving around before Rachel dropped Skylar off at the end of the road near her home, and Skylar was supposed to sneak back in. But the girls didn't think about the surveillance footage. A security camera captured Skylar leaving the building and getting into a car just past midnight, but there was no video of her getting dropped off back like her friends had said they did. Nobody could figure out just what happened to the young girl. That was until Rachel Shove had a mental breakdown and confessed to her lawyer and the police that she and Sheila stabbed Skylar to death. Why? For fun. They then dumped her body in the woods just over the state line, about 20 miles or 32 kilometers from their home. When State Police Corporal Ronnie Gaskin asked Rachel why the two killed their friend, she simply said that they stopped liking her. Even though they were supposed to be BFFs, the kind that can't be separated from the hip all throughout high school, Rachel and Sheila were harboring a secret grudge, a grudge that led to murder. Rachel got 30 years in prison, and Sheila got life. Number 5. Ribs for Thanksgiving. One Thanksgiving holiday took an ugly turn when a model and her husband got into a bad fight. 23-year-old Omimi Nelson and her husband, 56-year-old Bill Nelson, had more than a few bumps in their marriage. The older man had reportedly sold his beautiful young wife numerous times to other men for pleasure. Bill accepted anything from cash, rent money, to a car in exchange for his young wife's misery. In 1991, when the day should have been all about giving thanks in the country, Omimi took a pair of scissors and stabbed her husband in the chest. She then took a clothing iron and bashed him until he stopped breathing. Omimi broke her hand in the process. When Bill was dead, she chopped up his body, taking his hands and boiling them in hot oil to take off his fingerprints. Omimi also put his head in the freezer and took his genitals off with a knife. In an interview with a psychiatrist after she'd been taken into custody, she admitted to something that haunted the doctor forever. Apparently, to celebrate the holiday, Omimi put her husband's ribs in the oven with some barbecue sauce and then ate them. Police caught her while she was trying to dispose of the rest of Bill's remains. Later on, Omimi claimed that Bill would often tie her up and sexually assault her. She said the murder was an act of self-defense since he had tortured her earlier that morning, and she thought he might kill her. While Omimi might have escaped her supposed abuser, she definitely didn't escape prison. How much prison time do you think Omimi should get for this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 4. Missing wife. A Southern California man has recently been arrested on suspicion of killing his wife earlier this year. San Diego County prosecutors charged Larry Millette with murder and illegal possession of a weapon. So he should be facing life in prison when he gets convicted of killing his wife, Maya Millette, right? Well, according to what his attorney told local news, the charges are a bit of a shock because the police don't actually have any solid evidence that Maya is even dead. Larry's lawyer says that his client believes Maya is very much alive, but according to District Attorney Summer Stephen, prosecutors can still file a murder charge even if they don't have a body. Maya disappeared in January 2021. Larry said she abandoned him and their 3 children voluntarily. But if that's true, why didn't she take anything with her? She didn't even take her cell phone. Immediately, investigators considered him a person of interest. It soon came to light that the pair had been in a toxic relationship and that the last call Maya made was on January 7th to a divorce attorney. It also came out that Larry had hired magicians to cast spells to incapacitate Maya. Wait, what? Yes. He thought he could actually magically cripple her so that she would be forced to stay at home. He clearly had homicidal intentions. Even though Maya's body hasn't been found, there's no doubt in their minds that he's the killer. Number 3. Jealous boyfriend. Angel Felix Rodriguez was dating Indira Ramirez Rivera. According to friends, their relationship was on and off constantly and extremely toxic. When they were good, but when they were bad, they were awful. Their most recent argument was so bad it resulted in something incredibly atrocious. Angel murdered his girlfriend by beating her up and then strangling her. According to Assistant District Attorney Catherine Falasca, he wanted her to suffer. One of the EMTs who was first on the scene was quoted as saying, "It looked like the devil was in there." After Angel beat his girlfriend to death, he then left her corpse in their bed for 2 full days. But what was the motive behind this brutal killing? Apparently, it was because he was jealous. He didn't like the way that his girlfriend dressed when she went out, and he especially didn't like that she just got back from getting plastic surgery in the Dominican Republic. Then, when she stayed out too late one night, Angel lost control. He just couldn't handle not knowing what she was up to when she was not with him, and got so mad, that he killed her. Number 2. Serial killer cop. Just before he died, a former French police officer admitted to being a serial killer who stalked the streets of Paris throughout the 1980s and 1990s. His name is Francois Varove, and he overdosed on drugs just after the police called him in to submit a DNA sample. He knew the jig was up and figured he would just end it himself. He wrote a note before taking the drugs, admitting that he was the famous serial killer known as Le Grêle, pockmarked killer in English. Police had been searching for him for 35 years with no success. From 1986 to 1997, he murdered people throughout the Paris area. One of his victims was only 11, while his oldest was a 38-year-old man. Unfortunately for the victims' families, they'll never know the true extent of his crimes, because he died before the police could ever question him. Officers are 100% sure it was him, since they took DNA from his corpse and matched it to several different crime scenes. The craziest part, though, is that at the time of the murders, Francois Varove was an active police officer. He was actually part of an elite unit of cops responsible for protecting the presidential palace. He also belonged to a unit that specialized in pedophilia investigations. This seems pretty fitting, considering the age of some of his victims, who he not only killed, but also violated. Number 1. Margie the Widow. A young widow named Margie Jolovicic managed a tavern in Gary, Indiana in 1996. That's where she met a high-ranking motorcycle gang member named Randy Mad Yeager. The two hit it off, but Margie had no clue Yeager had a criminal record. He and several other members of the outlaw Chicago gang were under federal investigation for a long list of crimes, including racketeering, drug dealing, and murder. As their relationship progressed, Margie's behavior changed. She distanced herself from friends and family, and when Yeager and 17 other suspects were indicted for their crimes, she became even more devoted to him. Instead of bolting from all the red flags that were right in front of her, Margie stood by her man, even after he went on the run, hiding from the law enforcement officials. She became paranoid that she was under surveillance too, and constantly feared that the authorities would catch up to her criminal boyfriend. Several months later, Margie vanished, leaving behind her car, luggage, personal effects, and her inhaler that she relied on for treating her asthma. The woman's family suspected that Yeager had kidnapped Margie, but the police weren't certain that Margie didn't simply go on the run too. 17 years later, U.S. Marshals Service finally caught up to the pair in 2014 after tracking them down in Mexico. Yeager was taken into custody, but Margie unfortunately died after leading authorities on a high-speed chase and crashing the car that she was driving. Thanks for watching. If you want more true crime videos, let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time on The Bad Badger.